in terms of adding Stewie 2K, right, in light of the fact they didn't have a choice that Taco left, they also didn't really have many choices in terms of who to add now. Like, people in NRG aren't going to leave. Seemingly Wardell won't leave Ghost. Quite frankly, if you're looking for a role-for-role swap, there's not really anyone in the NA scene right now really kind of plays like Taco. Maybe you could say like Fogley, but again, is he going to leave NRG at this particular time? I don't know about that. So bearing in mind they didn't really have an obvious choice of someone to pick up here, okay, I don't mind adding Stu 2K. Quite frankly, if we view it in isolation, just adding Stu 2K, not who he's being added for, I'm in favour of it. As I mentioned on the Counterpoints episode where we talked about it, I actually think Stu 2K, or a player like Stu 2K with the attitude and the skill set of Stu 2K, is actually who Team Liquid might need to get over the hump against a team like an Astralis. My main issue is if he's being brought in to replace Taco. That is where I see it as a downside. Because if they were going to use Stu 2K and just put him into Taco's spots, or put him into the role of being a supportive type of player, I don't think that makes much use of him. I don't think that makes them a better team. I don't think he's better at it than Taco. If they're bringing him in to be what I would like him to be, which is what he was at his best at, as an aggressive entry player, a playmaker, I think that's a great use of Stu 2K, and I would be excited to see what this Team Liquid lineup is going to be like. I think he has the attitude, this very brash, like aggressive style of play, the idea of like, let's take the game to them, let's play in a chaotic style at times, the personality to be like, hey, we can beat these guys, we're better than them, like fuck all that noise of like, oh, let's play well and have a good game. I could see him being that kind of person, and obviously he was at his best in Cloud9 as that playmaker, as the guy who created space, and then other people hopefully make use of that. Could be that kind of a spark plug personality. When you have this much talent, when you have this many of the best North American players in one team, you could do some amazing things. You could be better than the old Team Liquid lineup in a different way. Because with that much talent, if you can just figure out a way to make a whole bunch of them work together and play at a high level, this can be a North American FaZe clan. Like, look at the talent we've got here. There are no bombs in this lineup. There are no bad players, washed up players. You could actually make an argument right now, this might actually be the most skilled lineup, man for man, to ever play CSGO. I think they'd actually be definitely in the conversation. And you could maybe even make a case when you consider how good people like Naf, like Twists have been at times, like Elige got to more recently in some of the tournaments. You could make a case going against FaZe Clan, because FaZe Clan always had Karrigan, obviously. Maybe this is a more skilled line, man for man. In terms of collective skill, I might still give the edge to FaZe Clan, but then again, some of those players live kind of on the value of their names from the past, right? Most of the Team Liquid players, not far removed from their peak. So this could be an incredible team in that sense. Now, as I talked about in the FaZe Clan video, their style didn't particularly work. I always thought they needed a supportive element type player, which in this team they don't really have. So that's the qualm I have, is are they going to go FaZe Clan approach, turn the boys loose, use this incredible individual skill, in which case you could be an incredible team, but you'll be a different team to the old Team Liquid. So I still have some hope here, definitely not writing off a team with this much talent in it. I just don't really see how they're going to make it work, or where the kind of swaps are in terms of the roles, or whether you can actually make the NA style of being a FaZe clan work. I'm very interested to see that. This might in some ways be a much more skilled version of the Cloud9 team that won the roster, so that's exciting in itself, right? I think it's a better group of players, and they've obviously got a better collective experience together. Fans typically, it's one of the reasons why classically forums were always like this. They always wanted the best team to just be like the 5 best players from that country, or just the 5 best players overall. Like in CS 1.6, if you'd have asked fans, they would have made a team that was like Fraud and fucking Heaton and Neo and Forest and Potty, or like they'd have made some absurd team that like logically wouldn't make any sense on paper, but they would think it'd be straight fire, even though, by the way, super teams not that far off that were attempted, and quite frankly almost never really succeeded, with rare exceptions, and that tended to actually be more on the incredible work of some of the super team members who in the past were maybe stars, who actually developed themselves into a separate role and became somehow among the best. I'm thinking of like Khan and DSN in that Fnatic 2009, even though all the attention was around the fragging of that team. So what they think when they think you can stack skill like that is they see, well, if you can just frag people, you get the numbers down, you win the round eventually, right? So in a sense, they think you can make the game simple, in a sense of and that Simple's the best player even. And obviously I'm using that as a pun. Like, if you just shoot people, why do you need to do the rest, right? Kind of like basically an extreme version of what Ty Lue's philosophy was when Ben Tep was over on their team and that somebody guy was just rushing into every fucking site, whether it made any sense or not. Even though it was amazing to watch, by the way. Just wasn't great Counter-Strike, typically. Plus, and I've always said this, the outlier on that team, and where you know people don't understand FaZe Clan, including Nico, is when they think like Carrigan's an afterthought. Carrigan's the reason that team worked. Look at the team before him. Look at the team after him. The reason why the team with Carrigan was so exceptional is because he's one of the best in-game leaders and his style even fits those types of players. I don't even know if to the best degree, but if you ever had to pick an in-game leader to lead those sorts of people, it'd be someone like him or Pronax effectively. And quite frankly, let's be real. That's why that angle, that any analyst who's ever said FaZe is like 5-star fraggers, it's like, that's whack. That's actually whack. I've never understood that because when Carrigan was there, he wasn't a star fragger, was he? So that was 4-star fragger. Why is 4 not enough for you? That's ridiculous in itself, by the way. And by the way, Orthmeister wasn't a star fragger, but let's put that by the by. So if they had won the major, listen, it's not like it has to be a huge if, right? They were 1 round away. There's a million factors that could have won them. The map pool said they would have won it. Like Cloud9 never performed that way before or since. Like, but let's put that one side. Even if they'd won that, who says they win the tournaments before that they lost? Who says they win the tournaments after that they lost? Yeah, maybe the psychological change heads. And even if they do, would they be as good as Astralis 2018? Would they be considered as great as Fnatic 2015? The problem is, I don't think they would. I think they would have won some tournaments and some majors and they would have been a very good team. My point here is, if they couldn't do it, who the hell else is going to? Like, this shows that model is sort of busted if that's how you're thinking of the game. But you look at them as players, Carrigan is the in-game leader and he is the brains of the operation. Without him, you're not going to win any titles, so you can't replace Carrigan. Kiyashima is also the best supportive player in the team and is actually one of the best in the world at that role at the moment, so you can't replace him. He's doing his job pretty well except for the major. Then you look at the other end of the equation. Nico has actually been playing godlike most of the tournaments that made it to the finals, an MVP candidate, so you definitely can't replace him. He's the best player on your team and perhaps, I mean, at one point in time and maybe in the future, the best player in the world. Rain is one of the best players in the team and in general has been one of your big firepower sources and kind of is FaZe at this point in time. He's one of the few remaining names and very popular player, very versatile player. So you also can't really replace him. So it's not that Alu should be replaced individually. It's that there's no one left that you can replace really. So logically, it kind of has to be Alu. Then you add in, if you're going to bring in an AWPer, as they did in the case of Guardian, you also want to replace AWPer for AWPer. So Alu was an AWPer. I also think the fact that Alu wasn't like a central star of the team made his AWP. It was good for what he could do individually with it, but for the overall team style, I thought it was a bit of a liability because they are a team that like to play in a low econ style, like to force it up a bit. And I felt as though getting that expensive AWP over to him all the time wasn't as great a use of their resources. Whereas when you have a star AWP like they're going to get with Guardian, you can actually build more of the team around him and therefore justify the resources of putting the AWP in his hands. So ultimately, Alu as an individual player, should he be cut? No. But in the context of the team, who they are and what they're trying to accomplish, he's pretty much the only one you really can cut for this particular player. So I do agree with the move in that particular sense, even though I do think Alu is a good player. So I think of him as a player where, as a top 1 or 2 player in your team, I don't think he's quite suited to that if your team's going to be a top 3 team in the world. If you're just going to be like the 6th best team in the world, sure, make him the best player or the 2nd best player. If you want to be the number 1 team in the world, though, I think he is best suited, kind of like Cajun B in North, kind of like Hobbit in Gambit, he should probably be your 3rd best player. At that point in time, now he's going to push you over the top. Now he's very skilled relative to the other 3rd best players. He can do a lot as a player, and his decision-making is stable, so he can play more of a role, doesn't have to have as many resources and be a superstar. So that's an aspect where I actually think it's not just Guardian joining, it's not just replacing what Alu gave you, but it's also going to shift Rain's role over, in my opinion, if it works out, in terms of what Carrigan should do as an in-game leader and structure the team to be more successful himself. And that is a classic thing about roster moves that's important. It's not just the 1-for-1 trade, it's the impact on the rest of the team and what that will change ultimately. So if you spin it on Huxley, same scenario. I'm getting sick and tired of fans not getting this because they think I hate Team Liquid, dude. Because I say, like, I don't think OC's good enough. I don't know if Nitro still is. And they're like, what do you mean? He's doing a good job. It's like, Team Liquid also supposed to be trying to be number 1. If you have Elysian Nath, it's time to go to number 1 in the world. Well, the question should be this. Who do I put what with Elysian Naff that makes us number one in the world? So my question for G2 is the same one. It's not, is Huxley good? Can Huxley be better than Lexi B? Is Huxley doing a good job for Monacy? That all sounds good. The question is, when you have Nico and Hunter, and now if Monacy's good, and then you have JK, so you actually have, by the way, like on roll for roll, it's becoming like a super team potentially. We're supposed to try to be number one now. We're not trying to just be good. We're not trying to, like, semi-finals is all right, but we're trying to be number one. We're trying to be, so the premise is, what should they have done, do you think, for IGL? Like, what angle should they be going for? Should they have broken the bank and gone for a big name?
Yes, definitely. I mean, if they didn't spend all this money and, got themselves in the position where they got how old is Huxley? 27. He never led an international team. Only got like this Danish. He understands them better. Obviously, the mentality is different. No superstar players. No ego. No nothing. No high
team. That's
team.
a problem I had right there. I actually agree with you. If I'm as good as Nico is, I used to say the same thing about Simple. You should have a massive ego. Not in a way where you ruin your teammates. Obviously, that's fucked up. But in terms of like, you should actually, for real, this is the area of like people like Michael Jordan I do fuck with. The angle should be like, I know what I can do. So give me the ability through teammates, coach. Let me do my work. Let me go to work and I will carry this game. I will win you the major. But as a result, I'm going to need things like maybe I need a certain type of IGL. Maybe I need a different teammate. Maybe this guy needs a different role in our team. You should be able to have that opinion. So the one problem I have with Nico is this. Because he didn't decide these things and he didn't have the final say, he tries to make it sound like he just sat back like, well, it would be rude for me to say my opinion. It's like, if that's true, then that's whack, dude. Like, you should have your opinion. You should absolutely be telling Carlos when you fail now, like, bro, this can't continue. Like, look, I can't make the decision of who you're going to get, but here's what I would say. Let's get this guy out. Let's get this guy in. And then obviously you take that on board. Like, I'm kind of on both ends. I actually want you to have a say. I just don't want it to be obviously that the org then just does whatever you say automatically. But you should definitely have input if you're as good as them.
Absolutely, because the team is built around you.
So I think Shox here, his drastic move is a bizarre one because it's to go back in time in many senses. It's to go back and try and make a real elite team out of French and Belgian players in a sense that France has not had since 2014 when he was in Titan and then when they switched out and had Kenny S afterwards when Shox left, and they still were a very good team but didn't have success at the majors. So what they're trying to do with this team is, first and foremost, since we're going to have a real elite team based around a tactical style again, or some variant of it, we're going to be at the best tactical in-game leader in the region, and that is Existence. Say what you like about him at the majors, and the fact he hasn't done much in the last few years, and that he gave up that opportunity to have a good secondary team with Happy and RPK and a bunch of other good players, and instead went to the LDLC project and tried to build them up, and could only go so far, and didn't go beyond basic tier 3 and low tier 2 LAN performances, and then winning games online in Pro League. Sure, he hasn't done much beyond that, but if you want to make a drastic move and bring in the best tactical in-game leader, he is almost indisputably the best tactical in-game leader in that region. Then you're adding to that what we never got from the last lineup of G2, which is the two best star players from the French region in the history of CSGO. That is Shox, one of the best mid-rounder clutch players of all time with a rifle, and that is Kenny S, I think the best AWPer, perhaps in any version of Counter-Strike, but for my money, definitely in CSGO. When a team has like big problems, it's usually not one player underperforming. It's a systemic issue. So I agree, you probably do need two player changes in this team. Is Apex the right one? Not in isolation, but in terms of we have to kick two players, yeah, you probably do have to kick him, right? Because who else are we kicking at this point in time? Now, is Smith's the right player to replace him? In isolation, again, no. But in the context of what we're trying to do, I can see a logic to it. Now, the NBK one, I have a lot of respect for NBK. I think he is a fantastically versatile player. I think he can do pretty much anything he wants in the game. I even think if you put him in the right team, he can actually go and be a star player again, if he wants to be. But part of the problem here is he is the main person who will not play with Existence. To this day, one of the reasons why he didn't go through this move, he will not play with Existence. So he is not an option as a result. He also doesn't like the Existence style of play, apparently. So as such, this is someone where even Happy was willing to play with Existence again. Shox is willing to play with Existence again. Kenny S is willing to play with Existence again. The only one who, as far as I know, won't is MBK, and perhaps Apex. Perhaps that's something else we can intuit from this move. Who knows?
Everyone needs a support network, and mine is, of course, my Patreon community, the Scrominati, who in many ways, they're the Sonny to my Cher, saying, I got you, babe. So this video and all the others on my channel were kindly supported by the following names: Ahmed Hadjou, Mac Pugnatio Rajcula, Adam Tomlin, Animosity, Jensen Goh, Tosh, Toucan, and you know it. Jerky's Minion, my main man, always going to be referenced, one of the best patrons of all time. Would you like to ask a question in my AMA? Maybe you want to suggest a topic or a guest to say on my channel? Do you want teasers, find out who the upcoming Reflections and Talk to Thorin interviews are? Maybe you want to do one of those long discussions where you get to set the topics we talk about. Well, if any of these or others appeal to you, put your money where your mouth is. Join the Illuminati today via the Patreon link in the description box below.